The Colorado Avalanche are raising the Stanley Cup. Gabriel Landeskog, Mikko, Rantanen, Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon, Bowen, Byram, Darcy Kuemper, Joe Sakic, Jared Bednar, and the rest of the Colorado Avalanche have the cup above their head right now as of the making of this video, as they win it in Game 6 over the Tampa Bay Lightning. And as one dynasty ends, another legacy begins. Let's go ahead and congratulate the Colorado Avalanche. Let's congratulate the Avalanche fans. And let's talk all about this series and how the Avalanche got here right now. The Colorado Avalanche were simply just too fast, too good, and too dominant for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They overwhelmed them with speed. They overwhelmed them with skill. They were able to stick in the trenches. They were able to shake off the hooks, the checks, the cross checks, all the annoying veteran presence pieces that we talked about going into this series. They shook off Andrei Vasilevsky. They shook off the best the Tampa Bay Lightning could throw at them. And don't get it wrong, the Tampa Bay Lightning were 2 goals away and 2 overtimes away from extending their legacy and extending their dynasty, but the Avalanche would not be denied this year. You heard me say it going into this series, and you've heard me say it all playoffs. Normally, the dominant team heading into the playoffs, especially when it comes to points, doesn't win. With 119 points, though, the Colorado Avalanche continue to roll over the competition. So for you young Avs fans that may not have been watching hockey for beyond the last, 2 to 10 years, this doesn't happen normally in the NHL, where you have a dominant number 1 team in the East or the West that just cruises through and wins. The last time a team won with 119 points was in 1984 with the Edmonton Oilers. And the last time a team won with 118 points, 1 point behind the Colorado Avalanche, was in 2001. It was the Colorado Avalanche. Very rarely do dominant teams end up getting through, and that is thanks to the parity, the grit, and the battle of attrition that is the NHL playoffs. And the Colorado Avalanche end up getting through this one, cruising through it with only 4 losses. Darcy Kuemper stands on his head. He returns to regular season form. We said that would be a massive key for the Colorado Avalanche. He does it, but it is the big core of the Avalanche, in my opinion, that end up taking this one home. There are so many storylines, so many pieces to this puzzle that we have to unpack for this Colorado Avalanche win, but you have to start with the core of the Avalanche, and the core of the Avalanche has to surround their captain, Gabriel Landeskog, drafted in 2011, pick 2. Look, you got to be a team that struggles, and you got to be a team that gets a little bit lucky in the lottery to be able to pick up the core guys they did, right? They end up picking up Landeskog. Then they come back and they get generational player Nathan MacKinnon from Cole Harbor, 101. 10th overall, Mikko Rantanen, who ends up getting in there. This kid from the AJHL ends up falling to them 4th. His name's Cale Makar. And then even after that, they go ahead and they find Bowen Byram, who is one of the biggest steals I think that we can all see in this NHL playoffs. He is good, he is skilled, and that is the core of the Colorado Avalanche. It was picked up through the draft. However, everything else for the Avs was picked up through amazing deals made by Joe Sakic. Trades, signings, really nice job by Joe. Joe has amassed an amazing team. And you got to go next after the core to the trade deadline acquisitions, as everybody was picking up arms and weapons and power tools, anything under the sun. There were massive trades happening at the deadline. The Colorado Avalanche were sneaky. They pick up Arturi Letkinen, probably the best value deal you could find at that point in time. They go ahead, they find Andrew Cogliano, and they bring in Josh Manson. And oh boy, was Josh Manson a huge addition for them, especially because Samuel Girard goes down against the Blues with a brutal sternum injury at that point in time. Manson steps in. Their entire blue line outside of Makar and Byram was traded for. What an unbelievable job by Joe Sakic amassing that blue line. The Johnsons, the Mansons, Devon Tays. I mean, what a trade that was. If you're an Islanders fan, that hurts a little bit, to be honest. But those guys end up bringing the Stanley Cup back to Colorado. So really nice job there by Joe. Nice job by Joe bringing in the role players. Guys like Nazem Kadri. Kadri was a massive piece to this puzzle, was he not? It doesn't matter whether you like Kadri. It doesn't matter my opinion on Kadri as a hockey player. Kadri delivered for the Colorado Avalanche this year, and he will be the most sought-after UFA going into next year. So great job. How about Valeri Nichushkin? Couldn't make it happen with the Stars, had to go back home for a bit, comes back over the pond to North America and becomes an absolute force for the Colorado Avalanche up front. So amazing job, amazing pickup there by Nichushkin. And then you got JT Compher and the rest of the Avalanche depth up front. Really nice job. And then you got to give your hats off to Jared Bednar. There was a few times Nathan MacKinnon ended up taking a strip off him, and he ended up taking a strip off MacKinnon. It is a curious relationship for me, but it is one that works because it ends up with a Stanley Cup. And we've seen it. We saw the Bolts have to hit rock bottom, getting swept before they won their 2 cups. Now we had to see Colorado hit rock bottom. I'll never forget Nathan MacKinnon crying, saying he wanted the cup next year. And he wasn't crying like, oh, poor me, I wanted the cup. He was crying out of frustration because he's a winner, he's a warrior, he's won at every level, and now he's won at the NHL level. And if the Colorado Avalanche can keep the band together for a couple years, he might chase down his best friend and coffee salesman, Sidney Crosby from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, and maybe he'll bring home multiple cups just like Sidney, because the cup is heading back to Cole Harbour with Nathan MacKinnon. Kale Makar is probably the biggest individual story for me in this one. This guy has ascended into a top 2 NHL player after these playoffs. No doubt about it, in my opinion. If you wanted to start a team drafting Cale Makar first over Connor McDavid, I wouldn't blame you. It is impossible, if not incredibly unlikely, to find a defenseman this good, this young, this early. Makar is now only going to be chasing Makar for the next 10 years. Is he going to be able to catch the legacies of guys like Bobby Orr and Paul Coffey? He's got a long way to go, kiddies. So he had an amazing year, Norris Trophy. Now he ends up getting a Stanley Cup. He's only the 10th player in history to do that. So great job by Makar. Offensive beast. Defensively sound and solid. We saw guys like Erik Karlsson. We've seen Brent Burns. We've seen amazing offensive defensemen take steps forward in the NHL, but I have not seen a two-way defender like this in quite some time. In my opinion, some of the best modern day defensemen, not named Paul Coffey, Cale Makar is going to be chasing down guys like Ray Bourque. He's got to go ahead and chase down guys like Scott Niedermayer. My goodness, what a defenseman that was. Or how about Nick Lidstrom? I mean, you can't talk about defensemen without talking about Nicholas Lidstrom. So this is what Cale Makar has in front of him. If he can stay healthy, if he can stay upright, and he can keep developing, the scary thing is we haven't even seen his ceiling yet right now. So great job to Cale Makar. The Avalanche as a whole had a very interesting path to the Stanley Cup final. They end up sweeping the Nashville Predators on their way here. They get into a war and a battle with the St. Louis Blues. It is a physical one. It's one that takes a toll on the Colorado Avalanche. Then they end up moving on to the Edmonton Oilers, handling them no problem. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. They take out the best player in the world, the dynamic duo of McDavid and Draisaitl. They end up in the Cup final, and I think this may have been one of the best series in the NHL Stanley Cup that I can think of in quite some time. Yep, I don't think Dallas and Tampa was great. I don't think Tampa and Montreal was great, but this was deserving a Stanley Cup final. Two heavyweights punching within their weight class. It just happened to be that the speed of the Colorado Avalanche end up taking it. The Tampa Bay Lightning just couldn't mount enough sustained offense to win this series, in my opinion. They were this close. It was only a couple shots away from being able to win it, like we said in that overtime. But at the end of the day, when you're playing against a guy like Andrei Vasilevskiy, you have to put a ton of pucks on net, and that is exactly what the Colorado Avalanche did. So it doesn't matter if it goes in off a bum, off a skate. Doesn't matter how it banks in, where it goes in. This team was dominant at putting shots towards the net, playing with strong Corsi. It was all about pucks on net. It was all about speed through the neutral zone, and it ends up paying off for the Colorado Avalanche. So where does this end up leaving the Colorado Avalanche? Well, it's a good thing they won the cup right now, because that's a lot of UFAs and RFAs coming up. This team could actually completely implode at this point in time when you're taking a look at it. It's a salary cap era. I mean, the biggest thing you got to be looking at is the fact that Nathan MacKinnon is going to be a UFA. He's not going to leave Colorado. I don't think that's a threat at all. It's just that, what are you going to do with this contract? What is he going to want to be paid? Nathan MacKinnon can deserve and demand up to $10 million, but maybe he ends up taking a team-friendly deal one more time in order to win a cup. He's already said that he was going to do it, but you know, when you get a cup in your brain and you've already had one now, money talks. So I'll believe it when I see it. I think Nathan MacKinnon is a man of his word, but at the end of the day, He took a really team-friendly deal. He's probably been on the best team-friendly deal I've ever seen in the NHL. I mean, it is just an absolute steal of a deal. We saw when John Tavares took a steal of a deal, he ended up getting $11 million a year after that. So MacKinnon can command that type of money. It'll be interesting to see if he wants to go ahead and do that. I don't think he leaves Colorado. I think he takes the team-friendly deal. But at the end of the day, it's something you got to have in the back of your mind because he isn't locked in for the foreseeable future. You also know that all of the depth of the Colorado Avalanche, they're not locked up. Take a look at them here. You can see them. RFAs and UFAs all over the board. Arturi Lehkonen, they control his rights. That's excellent because this was a really good player to bring in. He'll end up getting a deal with the team. Nicholas Aube-Kubel, Andre Burakovsky, Cogliano, Helm. Look, these guys are all role players that Sakic ended up finding, and some of them might find a home here on Colorado, but these are replaceable level players that I believe in a guy like Sakic to go find more replaceable level players just as good as those players. So I'm not too worried about them. I'm really concerned about guys like Kadri and Nichushkin. These are monster players. They had monster seasons. They are going to command a lot of money in free agency right now, and not everybody is just going to take a team-friendly deal in order to win another Stanley Cup. So what does Nichushkin, what does Kadri want to do? You end up getting your cup. Sometimes you end up wanting the bag at this point in time. So we'll have to wait and see how they play this in the offseason. They have a lot of cap space right now, but they got to be very cautious about it because they do have Rantanen and Landeskog locked up to a pretty big deal. And the benchmark of this right now is Mikko Rantanen at $9.25 million. Is he amazing? Yes, he is. Is Nathan MacKinnon better than him? Yes, he is. So will MacKinnon take a cheaper deal than his buddy Mikko Rantanen? I don't know about that. And then where did Nichushkin and Kadri see themselves in comparison to Landeskog and Rantanen? Are they close? Are they just below it? Are they 6 million? Are they 7 million? They are over 5 million, that's for sure, because they were absolute monsters this year. Just unbelievable players. So the future of the Colorado Avalanche is uncertain, but right now you have a Stanley Cup. The big keys for the Avs is that the defense are all but locked up at this point in time. You know that Bowen Byram being an RFA after next year, he's going to have one more year. He's going to step into a top 3 role. You got Samuel Girard if he's able to come back and play again, and I don't say that, being like worried. It's a sternum injury, so you never know. You got Devon Toews locked in for 2 years on a really team-friendly deal right now, depending on how good he is. So you have your 1 and 2 in Makar and Toews locked in. Eric Johnson ends up having one more year after this one, so he'll be locked in after that, and then you get a little bit of cap space. So there's a lot of cap space here for them to work with. $26 million this year, $45 million next year. It won't be 45 next year because they're going to be signing players, but the future of the Colorado Avalanche is definitely going to be an interesting one, and Joe Sakic has a lot of work to do, even considering the fact that Darcy Kemper is not on contract. So what are they going to do in net? You don't want to be talking about all this because you just want a Stanley Cup? Well, I do. I think this is always the interesting, immediate conversation. Why do I think that? Because it's great to be the champ, but you always got to start retooling next year, getting back to practice, getting back to training. These guys are going to have an awesome parade. Colorado, Denver, tell me where the parade's going to take place. I want to know down below. Everybody else who's been on this channel, thank you for being here through the playoffs. Please, it has been just an absolute blast. We grew from 4,000 to 10,000 subscribers because of all your thumbs up, because of all you hitting the free subscribe button down below, all the wonderful comments saying you really enjoyed the game breakdowns. I have had a lot of fun. I have grown through YouTube through the COVID era. So the Stanley Cup champions, previous, the Tampa Bay Lightning, were the 2 champions that carried me through the COVID era. We're now out of it. We had a regular season. We had a normal playoffs. This was definitely the most exciting playoffs I've seen in 3 years, and that's not taking anything away from the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't consider those COVID Cups at all. I think the Bolts were the best 2 teams in the NHL the last 2 years. I think the Avs are the best team in the NHL this year. Makes perfect sense. How can I not think that? They won the Cup. The winner of the Cup is always the best team in the NHL. So thank you for being here. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for dropping the comments. Thanks for dropping the thumbs up. And to all our members on our members page, it is incredibly humbling to me to see you guys want to sign up for this content, to support us here on this channel financially, whether you're in the lower bowl, the upper bowl, or the executive suites. It absolutely blows my mind that we were able to do something like this, that you saw value in. I'm just a guy talking to a camera, having fun. Remember to join the Discord down below if you want to get a hold of me. Look, guys, this has been super fun. I'm a little bit exhausted. I'm going to enjoy some of my summer here. We don't get a ton of it here in Winnipeg, so I might take a week or 2 off. Then we'll be back at it with off-season content. And what can you expect? You can expect ranking videos, prospect videos, Our members in the executive suites, they get a video once per month, so you can expect their requests to end up coming through. You can expect a lot of great off-season content. We're going to talk about builders, rebuilders. We're going to talk about the NHL because that is what we do. And we're going to have our weekly news breakdown as to what's going on in the NHL as well. So lots to stay tuned with, lots of ways to contribute, join, and be part of the Hot Garbage Sports family as we continue to grow next year. So we're not going anywhere in the off-season. Going to go play a little bit of golf and join the Maple Leafs on the course. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you very, very shortly.